How's it going, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of Debate Night. We are back yet again with some exciting disc golf on the horizon, some great topics to discuss, some of the latest and greatest news in the sport, and we got some really fun new guests on the show tonight. But first of all, we got Brodie Smith.
Yeah, last week was an electric show. Apparently, I said some things that some people really got upset about. But before I jump into that, the guests this year have been incredible. People really have liked the new guests this year. Nikki was definitely a fan favorite in the comment section last week. I have changed my mind, which is something that I think all people should be able to do when they are wrong or when they get more information. I'm as of now, I am anti the half marathon take that I had. So
Okay.
I think as of right now, they should have been awarded, and they ended up actually getting awarded the cash and placement spots. They did end up making that right. But as of right now, if you run the half marathon, you should not have to remember, or the marathon, you should not have to remember the course. That should be in place. Now, some comments that I have to go after, because I will not allow people to, first off, blatantly, if you're commenting at home, I'm ripping this stuff off the top. So if you are going to write a comment, please be factual. The fact that some people are telling me that a bullseye isn't 3 meters long, like I think someone was saying that bullseye was 11 feet. Brother, please, you can literally Google PDGA bullseye length, 3 meters, do the conversion. It's roughly just over 9 feet. But some of these comments have to be talked about. First one coming from Moto Milk. He says, I'm not sure.
Name dropping.
I'm not sure what Brodie is comparing to here. Disc golf is easy compared to what? Ball golf? You're just wrong. Okay, next one. Darwin. Brodie typically makes the most ridiculous comments every episode. The time he says that disc golf is easy, or this time he says disc golf is easy. So Brodie, when's the last time you won an Elite Series tournament? Easy, question mark? No, easier than ball golf or basketball or soccer. Next one. This is from Darwin. Brodie typically makes the most, I already did that one. This one is from Disc Golfer 3R. Brodie thinks he's such an athlete. I played no sports in college, and I could smoke him at any sport. And then the final one coming from, this is the same guy. He says, remember you gave up on disc golf because it wasn't as easy as you thought. Okay. So a couple things before I jump into it that I have to talk about. This is, I believe, in regards to me saying that Taylor, after her performance, it's not surprising that someone that's athletic, that has an athletic background, can come into disc golf and get really good quickly. The reason I say that is disc golf is easy to get good at. Now, to be incredible, to be on like Gannon Burr's level, that is actually very difficult. But actually just getting good at disc golf, or even getting great at disc golf, is not that challenging compared to a lot of other sports out there. Now, this person's basically, I'm not even gonna entertain the golf one. That is insane. Not entertaining. But basketball, let's talk about basketball, because I did talk about how putting, and I think they're talking about putting here, how putting is easier, in my opinion. And this guy's claiming that he thinks shooting a free throw is actually easier, or making a shot is actually easier. I think there was someone else saying that they thought throwing from second base to first base was easier than making a 90-foot putt. Brother, those two things are completely different things. Throwing to first base, you have a massive range that you can throw it versus making a putt. But in regards to basketball, let's just go there real quick. I got to just tell you guys a quick MJ story. If you haven't seen this, you should watch it. He did an interview with, I believe, Mike Tirico, and he talks about how he rented a house at the Ryder Cup. The owner wanted to come over with his kids and grandchildren to take photos, do a meet and greet, all that stuff. MJ was doing it. The owner of the house says, hey, man, we have a basketball court in the backyard. Can you just go in the backyard and shoot free throw for my grandkids? MJ talks about how nervous he was for this shot. He talks about how he hadn't touched a basketball in a couple years, but it was more for the legacy of the fact that all these kids have heard stories about how great MJ was. And now he's going to a free throw line. Mind you, a free throw is 15 feet from the backboard, roughly about 13 feet from the front of the rim. This guy, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, is nervous to try to make a 15-foot shot. It would be hard for me to believe that disc golfers would be nervous to make a 15-foot putt. It's a lot different. That again, guys, that's a few feet outside of bullseye. So I have to say that. Also, if you want to talk stats, Stephen Curry holds the career free throw percentage at 91.2%. 91.2%. Only 3 players in the NBA have ever shot over 90% in their career from a free throw line. Okay. There were 4 players last year in the Disc Golf Pro Tour that putted higher than 90% from circle 1. That's moving the disc all the way back to 33 feet. Okay. To act like those two things are similar is crazy. And in regards to this other person saying, these are some of the weirdest debates of where someone's saying, you think something's easy, you never won a tournament. So the only people that win a tournament are good at something. That's insane. My whole point was disc golf is something that you can jump into and get really good real quick. To get excellent and to get to like the top level, very, very challenging. But to get really good, it's one of the easier sports out there. Like it's the mid-tier sport out there. That's all I have to say. If anyone disagrees, would love to debate more.
He rests his case. Comments down below if you continue to agree. that was Man of the People extended edition.
Sorry, I had to go in. I can't stand when people claim that disc golf is extremely challenging. And when they say other sports that are way harder, and it's okay for a sport to be easy. That's one of the reasons why disc golf is actually kind of cool. Is people can get into it, and within like a week they can get really good at it.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, a lot of people get addicted to doing that stuff.
Very true. Anyways, other guests on the show tonight.
Sorry about
Hunter. We have a new Hunter on the show. We had 2 Dustins, and now we have 2 Hunters. Hunter, tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Hunter Node. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. I've been actually playing disc golf since August of 2024. I have not been playing disc golf super long, but I have always done sports that involve some sort of disc-shaped object like my whole life. So I threw discus for like 10 years, which is like track and field. I threw discus.
Heck yeah.
And then I played ultimate like crazy in college. I go to FSU or went to FSU. I'm well graduated now, but whenever I started playing disc golf, it was discus to like disc golf clicked better than discus to ultimate somehow. So I threw forehand for like 90% of my throws. So, but I love watching disc golf. I love talking about disc golf. My favorite aspect is just simply questioning things about course design, just the actual pro scene. It's one of my favorite things, that's why I love being on here.
Hunter, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you were doing discus, were you thinking? Yeah, were you thinking?
I would say
like when it's your turn to go and you're in the ring, or I don't know exactly the technical term, but when you're in the circle, are you thinking?
I wouldn't say
like I need to release now, or I
don't step out the front,
or let me really push off this back foot, or are you just letting your body do what it's done thousands of times?
Well, I started throwing discus when I was like 11, so it kind of eventually just became like something I did after a while. So I mean, I would say like yes for practice, but no, not an actual event. I would not say I was actually actively thinking about timing or anything. At that point, my form had just come so natural. I would say that I was like, okay, time to start throwing. And then my mind went blank and then I threw.
Interesting. For all those comments out there, that's tough. That's tough. That's tough for the comments out there saying that track and field events people are thinking. That's hard. That's hard for those people.
Collecting ammunition for
That's tough out
that
there.
exists. Gary is joining us as well.
I had an emergency root canal this morning, so that was great.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I can't even tell. You're not even numbed up anymore?
I can't feel this part of my face right here still a little bit, which is great.
I can't really tell.
When I was down at Disc South, I may have cracked an entire tooth off. So,
wow, nice. You're not supposed to eat the discs, Gary.
I didn't eat the disc. It was a piece of burnt corn from Mod Pizza. So that was
throwing him out there. Lawsuit.
Lawsuit.
All right, and then finally we got Tim joining us. We finally made it to Tim. Tim, what's up? Tell him about yourself.
What's up? What's up, guys? My name is Tim Whaley. I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I manage a sports card and TCG shop, if you can't tell behind me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I've come as prepared as Brodie came prepared to the distance competition in the Foundation All-Star event a couple weeks ago. So that's about how prepared I am.
You got someone else's answers?
And just to let Brodie know, for me, 15 feet might as well be circle 2. So that's how we're starting this out.
I'm not saying everyone's gonna be able to putt well from 15 feet. I will say though, if you just give me a random average person off the street, I would guess that they would make a 15-foot putt before a free throw in basketball. Because I've seen people that actually play basketball and they're shooting up bricks nonstop from the free throw.
My 8-year-old son makes 15 feet putts. So it's,
also fascinating thing I looked at too. A WNBA player actually holds the record for highest free throw percent. And when you think about it, I think the reason is the basketball smaller, the hoop's the same size.
It can't hurt. Still impressive.
No, very impressive. But I think that's why that
would definitely,
because it's drastically higher. I think it's like 2 or 3% higher than Steph.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All right, well, let's hop into our first topic of the night. So the Open at Austin is now the Barbasol Open or at Austin, I should say, after the shaving cream brand has jumped aboard with yet another disc golf sponsorship. So I want to know, how important is it for the DGPT to sell title sponsorships in general? Do you feel like this is an area of their business that's well behind where it should be, considering most title sponsors are disc manufacturers? It definitely is something that is reflected on other professional tours. Brodie, what do you think?
Well, first off, Gary, can you give me the full, because I know you know it, can you give me the full name of this tournament? Because it's pretty incredible. I know you have it written down. Do you not have it written down?
I don't, because I had a root canal this morning. I got no notes in front of me, dog. I am ready to dome this sucker.
I think this could potentially be like a 15-word title or 15-word tournament. But I'll wait until someone finds that. But okay, so first, let me start this off, and maybe this will help my case and some of the people in the comment section. I honestly have no idea. This is not my expertise when it comes to like the business sponsorship sides of like what should be done. But what I can do is I can kind of look at what other sports have done and where it's been successful for them, and I can only assume what's been successful in other areas. That's probably going to be the same case for the disc golf Pro Tour, and that is, if we can get someone that isn't a disc manufacturer to sponsor an event, I would assume the disc manufacturers would want to be a part of that event, whether it's vending or being a smaller sponsor or something. I would assume they would still want to be a part of that. And so what I always thought is, like, if Innova has their event, they almost kind of block off Discraft from being there or being able to do anything. Same as if Discraft has their big event, you don't really see that much of Innova in there. And this could allow the ability of all the disc manufacturers to come in and be a part of it. And I think that's going to be a win.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
All right, so from my thoughts, I think title sponsorships from companies outside of disc golf are incredibly important for the DGPT, and honestly, I think it's an area where the sport actually is behind where it should be, because whenever you have outside sponsors, it kind of validates the sport, and when you have the title sponsor of an event being a disc manufacturer, it essentially looks like the industry is sponsoring itself. But whenever you have a company like Barbasol who steps in, it signals that disc golf has value to businesses that have nothing to do with discs. Sort of, if you're not considering the dying aspect that we consider with Barbasol. Second, those sponsors bring real financial growth. The biggest DGPT events, especially majors and elite series stops, are where the sport gets the most viewership. And if those events secure strong outside sponsorships, that means bigger purses, stronger production, and a more professional product overall. Now, to be fair, disc golf has grown financially since the COVID boom. Back in 2019, the entire disc golf pro tour season purse was roughly around $1 million, and now it's about $3 million in total across 30 events. And today, but when you compare that to other emerging sports like pickleball, for example, I think that you have that explosion from 1 million to 15 million per year. And that growth didn't happen by accident. Whenever you see sponsors like Carvana, DoorDash, Coca-Cola, and Molson Coors, disc golf looks kind of like they're slow. And I think because at the end of the day, if disc golf events are mostly sponsored by disc companies, we're not really watching professional disc golf or watching a marketing convention with a tournament attached.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Well said. Gary, what do you think?
Also, I had to look it up. It's the 2026 Barbasol Open at Austin, presented by Hampton Inn Home 2 Suites, Austin East. So, it is quite a name. For me, it comes down to a couple things. I think having outside sponsorships is really, really important. I think we can all agree on that. But we have to do something with that when we do it. We have to get the activations. We have to show why it's important for companies to be involved. It goes back to the argument of if Powerball came in and we just got money and we don't do anything with it, we don't see anything from it, it's not going to do anything for us. The disc golf manufacturers are always going to be around and always going to be part of events. So if we bring out these name title sponsors in, it creates a greater competition for those spots. It can help bring more money and boost and inject into the game, which I think is a really, really good thing. And, we're still going to see Discraft partner up with certain events, especially out in their area. But if we can get those non-endemic sponsors to be involved, and Barbasol, they still have some ties to previous sponsorships on the Pro Tour. So to say it's a completely outside look, that's that. But when we saw Ford come in and sponsor hole 16 at the European Open with the special custom blue tee pads, I think that was a really unique perspective of getting a large company to come in and be involved. I know it's kind of crazy, but the candy company thing, that's decent. Haribo coming in, that's pretty cool. So the more we can get the eyes of people on companies who they recognize in disc golf, it's better for the sport, the overall growth of the game, and the money being injected into our events.
Yeah, certainly. All right, Tim, go ahead, wrap it up for us. What are your thoughts on the title sponsorships?
Yeah, so I kind of echo the same thoughts as Hunter, to be honest. And I know, Brodie talked a little bit earlier. I know it's a hot topic right now, comparing golf to disc golf, right? Ball golf to disc golf. But when you look at the two, I mean, golf has huge sponsorships like Valspar and Valero and RBC, Cadillac, right? And I'm a big stats guy, and they're bringing anywhere between $8 to $13 million annually for the PGA Tour, right? And two of the biggest things that we look at in disc golf is taking care of the players, right? Making sure that they're paid. Making sure that they're well taken care of and they're not struggling out here on the road, trying to just find the next meal or whatever the case is, right? And I know that's a huge part of what these sponsors will bring in is elevating these purses and making it more appeasing for the players and getting them more money in their pockets for winning tournaments, even maybe stretching out, how many players get paid and such. So that's a huge part of it. Another one, in my opinion, I'm a big social media guy here at the shop, right? And brand alignment, right? I mean, pushing these brands on the DGPT social media or any of their social media is going to bring so many more eyes to disc golf, right? It's going to bring so many more people to the sport. It's going to bring so much more entertainment, so much more as far as, again, taking care of the players and bringing more eyes to disc golf. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, I definitely, it's no secret in sports in general that advertising and television rights are like the two big financial wheels that turn each other and generate money. And it certainly is a big part of the equation. But I think when you see deals like this, especially for a company like Barbasol, it's good to see that they're sticking around. They obviously have a bit of a different package, but there's a reason on the PGA Tour these events aren't just going to be vacant, right? They're not just going to have generic names. They're going to have companies attached to them because there's value there for those companies. And they also, I think on the PGA Tour, there's just a sense of pride in sponsoring those events too. That's something that maybe isn't super feasible yet for disc golf, but you want to get to the point too where it's almost bragging rights to say our company is attached to this tournament. Like that's a big deal, just visual for us. So it's definitely good to see.
Real quick too, just for those that don't pay attention to golf at all, there was actually a really interesting podcast that just came out where they gave, some people kind of gave some information on the financials of being a professional golfer. And one thing that was kind of interesting from it is a lot of people on the PGA Tour, where we just kind of have this idea. I think a lot of people just think like, oh, if you're a PGA Tour player in golf, you're making a crap ton of money. A lot of players have very, very similar financials to Disc Golf Pro Tour players. Like they are staying in Airbnbs with multiple other pros. And also the travel expenses, because they're having to go out. A lot of times they're having to travel out of the country a lot of times. Also, a lot of them have families. I think in the Disc Golf Pro Tour, if you kind of look at it, I would say there's more single guys that are on tour versus on the PGA Tour. I don't know the exact numbers, but I thought it was fascinating because I think we always just have this idea that, yes, the top guys are making an insane amount of money in comparison. But I think it's very similar. I think disc golf, the top guys in disc golf are making a lot more money than the bottom guys.
Yes, the top and bottom separation is similar, but it goes way deeper in the PGA Tour as far as the guys that are well off. Like you got to be way down on the money list. But I will also say it's scalable. It's scalable because their travel costs, obviously, like even if you made $500,000 a year on the PGA Tour, you might be poor relatively because you got to pay your caddy, you got to pay an agent, you got to pay to get to these tournaments and so on and equipment and whatever else it might be. It is definitely scalable.
Yeah, I just disagree. I disagree in the idea that the Disc Golf Pro Tour should have X amount of players that make a lot of money. Like, I don't think that is a good way of doing it. I think it's going to eventually work itself out. But it will always be just like in the PGA Tour. There are people that are trying to make it, even though they have a tour card, they are still trying to make a living playing golf. I think that will always be the case in Disc Golf Pro Tour. And this idea of like, hey, if you're on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, you should be making money. I don't think that's a good idea, because when you start just siphoning money out, I just don't think long run that makes sense. I think there's always going to be a top echelon people that make money and some people that are always going to be struggling.
There's also the other fun thing about disc golf, how we now have players becoming sponsors of events, which is really, really interesting with Simon and everything on his end. And while I was down at Disc South, I was talking to another player who talked about how they were offered an opportunity to sponsor an event on their own. So like, got some unique stuff going on.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so next we're going to talk a little bit about this Big Easy Open. This tournament is already opening without it even starting yet, with a lot of controversy surrounding this course. One of the interesting topics are these tee pads. So it's debuting some eye-catching tee pads that are not only concrete, which is different than what we kind of thought the tour standard was, but they feature some humongous large areas for run-ups, and then also like painted lines to kind of demonstrate different angles of approach. And these are featured on a lot of the different holes. Some of them are bigger than others. But I want to know, what are your thoughts on these tee pads? Do you see anything you like? Is it nice to see innovation in this area, or do you think that the turf standard used everywhere else is just perfectly acceptable and we don't really need to innovate this any further? Hunter, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I've actually watched the Goose and Ezra practice round just to check them out beforehand. I really personally like the tee pads, and not just because they look cool, but I like them because they represent something that I think the PDGA has been kind of missing so far, and that's intentional design and a standardization of the game. Right now, one of the biggest challenges with professional disc golf is that the infrastructure of the sport can vary dramatically from event to event, and players are competing at the highest level, but the surfaces they're competing on can change week to week. So concrete tee pads with a longer run-up area, visual approach lines are a great step. I think they create consistency for players while also helping viewers understand what the intended shot shape may be. And when people hear standardization, they kind of get worried that you're going to lose the beauty and the creativity of course design in disc golf. But that's not what I'm really talking about. I think the terrain doesn't change. The woods, elevation, shot shapes always stay the same. But what changes is the presentation of the playing surface. For example, at the Supreme Flat Open earlier this season, we saw a lot of attention given to the upgraded tee box areas and the built-in seating and the camera positions. And this just overall produced cleaner staging around the pads. It made the opening event look much more polished from a broadcast perspective. And that's why I always come back to the idea that standardization doesn't remove creativity, it just ensures competition itself is consistent. And whenever we're talking about traditional ball golf, it eventually standardized things like tee boxes and greens, not because they wanted every course to look the same, but because professional competition demanded consistent playing surfaces. And I think disc golf is starting to reach that moment.
Yeah, there's no doubt that people pushing things forward will at least, it creates a discussion like we're having right now. Gary, what are your thoughts on these tee pads?
Here are the things that I like. I think when it comes to stuff like player safety, giving them more space, having a fresh concrete tee pad area on the front to be able to follow through with, I enjoy all that. That's fantastic. Do I think from an infrastructure perspective, are they impressive? 100%. I do have a small issue, though, with the standardization part because we don't play on courses on the Pro Tour that allow for these tee pads to be put in everywhere. They're going to have a hard time with standardization. And the funny part is, John Hauk, he even said these are not his wife designed these, and she has designs for even bigger tee pads. So like this isn't even the limit of what they're looking at yet. And he talked about having these be standardizations. They don't have this parish that put all this money out to like put a new pond in and move a pond, all that stuff. We don't have that at a lot of the other courses on tour. So what are they going to do when they want to do standardization? I think it's just another case of like, it's a great idea. I love seeing innovation, but how are we going to make this standard across the tour? I just don't see it happening. Now, maybe the smaller versions of them, we could do something similar to that. I like that. The lines on the tee pads, cool, I guess. It makes me think more of like a hopscotcher area than it does like a tee pad itself. I think people are going to understand what the intended line is as they see the player run it from the side. So I like the width, giving players the opportunity to move in a different, like almost laterally a little bit as they go to throw. But to say that this is going to drastically, at one point John was like, "Oh, I'm going to see that yellow line, and I know that I got to run up to the right of it or to the left of it." These are the top pros in the sport. They're going to know how they got to run up to throw their shot. They don't need a line to tell them what they have to do.
Sounds like half-size basketball courts coming soon for our tee pads if we keep going up from here. I mean, I think you could play quite a few games of pickup.
How many
on the
cars
current
can you
hole
park
tee
on
pad.
these tee pads?
Seriously, that's the real metric. Tim, what are you thinking about these tee pads? Do you think there's anything good about them?
I mean, first of all, at least 2 or 3 motorcycles we can get on there easy from what I've seen. So if not a couple cars, at least a couple motorcycles for sure. But yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, all I hear a lot of people talk about for like the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years of disc golf is a big thing is player safety, right? And this takes care of a lot of that. I mean, we just saw some rain and some nasty weather in Florida this past weekend. And I mean, that's a big component of these tees, and the reason why or these tee boxes, and the reason why I like them is the fact that you don't have to go off of something like a muddy ground, right, and then hop onto the tee pad and then throw, right. You don't have to go from gravel rocks or whatever kind of surface that it is. You don't have to go from that to have a new feeling under your feet to see these professionals throw the best shots that they can, right? And at the end of the day, that's what we want to see. We want to see these pros have every opportunity to throw the best shot shapes that they possibly can. And I think having them definitely helps. Now, standardizing them and make them everywhere, like you said, Mrs. Huck is the one who designed them, and she's shopping them, elsewhere from what I hear, which is great. But how many people have the resources, right? That was a great point. And the last thing that I want to say, there's a huge announcement that came out. I don't know if all of you guys have heard this or not, or if anybody listening has heard this, but there is breaking news about these tee pads that I heard, and that is that James Conrad actually started on cement and finished his throw on cement. So that's a huge deal, I think, and a huge plus for these tee pads.
I watched him take one of the most egregious run-ups on this tee pad, and I was like, man, he's really here to live. And then he like shanked it into a tree. It was really funny. Brodie, what do you think? Do these players deserve the space to throw these kind of shots? Or is it good for player safety? Is it just like not feasible? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'll say this. When people were telling me about these tee pads before I got to actually see them, I, for a second, was like, wait, is someone actually taking my idea? I was getting really excited because I thought something that would make disc golf really interesting was making bigger tee pads and then being able to change the angle of where people can throw. So on one day, it might make more sense for a backhand, and then you move to another side of the tee pad, and that's where you have to throw. Now you have to throw a forehand. I thought that's what was happening. And then when I actually saw it and noticed that's not what was happening, I was a little sad. But I like everything about the tee pads. I think they're fine. Now, to Gary's point, I wouldn't really say hopscotch. I think it's more amateurish to see those lines to me. Like, that makes it kind of feel like if you're a new disc golfer and you're coming out there, that's to kind of help you understand, like, hey, these are the angles that you can use to attack. I think it looks silly that the Disc Golf Pro Tour is playing on those. So I don't know if there's a way to get around it, because I think it's great for amateurs. I don't think it's good for pros. And then to kind of just debate a little bit on what some of these guys said, to Hunter's point about changing the surfaces, tennis and golf changes surfaces every week. They have no problem with it. They play on hard court, they play on clay, they play on grass. Different type of grass is played on golf courses. So I think going from concrete to turf, I don't think that really matters as long as the player safety thing is in. And to Tim's point, the mud, I do agree with you. I think the biggest thing that this takes away is people running from like mulch into or having to step up onto a tee pad. I think optically that just always looked goofy to me. Yeah. So I think that takes that away, which is nice. But the mud will still be a problem. Just because you have a bigger tee pad doesn't mean the mud issue is going to go away. The only way to make the mud issue go away is if we have those boot cleaners. You got to have those brushes. You got to have players be able to step in something and brush their mud off their feet and then step on the tee pad. Otherwise, everyone's just going to beat the mud off on the tee pad. It's slowly going to grow, and it's going to get worse for everyone throughout the day.
I think what these tee pads really bring into question is there's like now a discussion to be had about, should players have the right to run up from off the tee pad? Because if you don't have these tee pads in place, you get some of the most unsafe, goofy looking throws where you have guys like maybe running up a hill slightly through mud and mulch to get onto the tee pad to then throw. And then it's like, well, the only way to prevent that is to build these massive teeing areas. It then raises the question, I think, like, well, do the players even deserve to have that much range? Or is the 6 foot...
But that goes to my point. If you want them not to be able to do that, you can still have a big tee pad, but then just force them to have to throw it from a specific spot.
Right.
If you're like, hey, we don't want you to throw anywhere on this huge tee pad, then just force them to have to throw it from a certain spot or have to run up from a certain area.
It's definitely... Go ahead.
If I can jump in real quick, I don't know if you guys have ever. I was watching Ezra and Goose's practice round as well. And one thing that Ezra, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been texting on your cell phone, walking out of a store, and you step off of a curb, right? And you feel like you just walked off of a cliff and you collect yourself, right? I think Ezra kind of made a point of, well, you know, how long is it going to take me to get used to this before I just realize that, oh no, I just stopped in the middle of the tee pad, right? Or maybe maybe I took too many steps or too little steps. I think they've had kind of the same size for so long that this may deter people at first, or kind of affect some of those shots, when they're first hopping on there. So that'll be interesting to watch this weekend for sure.
Yeah. Whenever I first went to Eagles Crossing, I was lost out there on the tee pad because they're so massive. I couldn't figure out where to start my run up. I had no clue.
Yeah, I think kind of like with me, like talking about the standardization, like playing surfaces, to me, it's not even a matter of like, oh, all tee pads should be a like 8 by 4 foot square in every single course. I think more so to me is allotting the appropriate room and also enabling viewing angles, because when we're considering things that are high level events that are putting a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of money behind, we should at least take the time to standardize the area that we're using to make some of the best content for the social media aspect of the game too, and the broadcast viewing aspect of the game. Because I think if we have good sized tee pads and we actually have area around them that we can use, I think that's a great start.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's good for optics to have like a consistently smooth looking teeing area, no doubt. Okay, we got to move on here. We got a fan submitted topic here. Shout out to the fan that submitted this one here, and this is what they had to say. So, DGN is a subscription-based coverage. We already pay for the product and still get ads every 5 minutes. How do you feel about constant breaks in coverage? Should DGN have a more expensive plan for coverage with no ads? How much would you be willing to pay for that? Gary, what do you think about the current model? Is this a valid question or asking too much?
Well, like you said, we care about smoothness here. When you have like the breaks in coverage are going to happen because you have to sell those ad spots. The ad spots bring money to the game, and like that's important. There's a room for that. When we think about stuff like ad-free versions of the disc golf network, they've done and tried that before, and it just turned out to be them splitting the screen into 4 corners and them still showing ads anyway sometimes, and or they would just cut to a drone flyover and put the scores on screen. It's like you're not really gaining much. Like, why are you charging people for this extra service? You know what a lot of people have been asking for instead? They would pay more for a commentary free version of the round, or put microphones on the players and allow us to get some hot mics on the course. That's what we need in terms of how we update this process. But I don't really think there should be a more expensive for no ads, because they really can't fill that space. We just had that at the Supreme Flight Open. We had the lightning delay, and they put that screen up for who knows how long. The Disc Golf Network doesn't know how to fill that space adequately, and if they can't do it, they shouldn't be charging more for it. I'd be curious, are they charging the companies more for those spots? I don't know. To me, I think we don't need a Disc Golf Network with no ads. We need Disc Golf Network to be more creative and give us like hot mics on the players, or maybe some nice ambient music in the background while we just watch people play the game.
Yeah, I mean, it is fair to be like, well, what are they going to do with that time? It's almost like they'd have to have more cameras. Tim, what do you think about the DGN model here?
Yeah, so I mean, great suggestion there with the hot mics. I know I just watched the Jomez interview with Gannon, and with him and Ricky's trash talk there in the last tournament. So I would love to hear some of that and how that went down. Although I feel like some of our favorite players may not be our favorite players after we hear maybe some of what they have to say.
You're 100% right there.
Attest to that.
A lot of fakies.
But for me, I mean, listen, guys, I got 6 children. Okay, it range from 10 months old to 17 years old. Okay, so for me, I've built up a lot of patience. Okay, if I can be honest. So sitting through the commercials is sometimes the least of my worries. It's just scurrying the kids out of the room at this point is more what I'm worried about. But to second that, I'm not paying for anything extra that I don't have to, right? Because I do have the 6 children to worry about. I'm not paying any more for a subscription without commercials, right? I know YouTube does that. YouTube offers that, hey, ad free, for another $5 or whatever the case is. And I think that's just a component of, like Gary said, a lack of creativity, right? There's so much that can be done. There's so many screens that you can put up where we're not putting up ads, right? Or where we are going to, maybe the conversation between caddy and player or whatever the case is. That's a conversation that maybe I would want to hear. So yes, getting a lot more creative, and just us fans having just a little bit more patience.
Yeah, it's true. Even if they had the product, maybe it's something that people wouldn't even really pay for. There are always those people out there that will have the ad-free version no matter what. Some people are just allergic to advertisements. Brodie, what do you think? Are you one of those guys?
Well, I think you guys kind of answered the question in a way. I mean, you're talking about they need to get more creative, but I think you've already kind of said exactly what they need to do. Like, they just need to show stuff. They don't even need to necessarily have commentary, just show stuff. I did not know about that. That they tried the ad free and like they were just not showing anything when the ads went. They just did like a drone. That's wild, but it definitely doesn't surprise me the Disc Golf Pro Tour did that. Question: I did not watch live last week or 2 weeks ago. Were there any stationary cameras at SFO?
Not that I remember.
I don't think so.
So that is right there a big, huge problem. Something that I've said is like, literally just have, what was the hole that everyone was like trying to ace on the new hole on SFO? Was it 6, I think. The downhill one, short one.
Yep, 6.
Yeah.
Like, have a stationary camera on there. And then when the ads go, or when it goes to commercial break, the non-ad people, it just cuts to that. And guess what? If you want to even be better, actually have chopped up shots of people that have played the hole earlier. And you're just watching people throw shots at that. I mean, I think the answer is, I've seen people out there spend crazy amounts of money for like VIP tickets for Disc Golf Pro Tour events. There are people that will spend extra money. And to Tim's point, Like the YouTube non-ad, if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, the non-ad is an incredible thing.
Yeah.
They literally, all they do is like, you don't get any ads. So same thing in disc golf, literally for $5 more, $7 more, people will pay to not have to see ads and just see disc golf throughout the entire time. People will do it. You just have to, like Gary said, give them a product that's actually something you're paying for, which it seems like is the bare minimum.
Yeah, there's always some people out there that will pay for the most premium package. That is definitely sales 101 there. All right, Hunter, wrap it up for us. What is your take on this?
Spoiler, I am one of those people that pays for the ad-free DGN and doesn't even use it. But I actually think that the ads during the Disc Golf Network broadcasts are necessary, and they honestly mirror how professional sports are already kind of managed with marketing. At the end of the day, the sports broadcasts are supported by two things, subscriptions and advertising. If professional disc golf wants bigger purses, better production, and more cameras on the course, that funding has to come from somewhere. And there's actually research on this topic. So it actually found that fans generally accept advertising during sports ad broadcasts because they understand those commercials help pay for these things. So they're seen as a necessary evil. So while people may not love the ads, they're widely understood as part of the business model that houses the sports media. And when we look at disc golf viewership data specifically, we actually see something similar. Coverage numbers from the 2025 season show massive interest in events like the PDGA Pro Worlds internationally, but those viewers were often watching alongside other major sporting events like F1. Those suggest that fans aren't always sitting through every moment of a broadcast anyway, and they're flipping through coverage, try to see if they can find something else. And now I know that the comparison has been made that there's a Masters broadcast and how sponsors like Rolex remove the ads. And sometimes they can do that because they are the masters. And I think for that, we're just not there yet. And I think to replace ads with additional coverage, you need more cameras, more commentators, and just overall more crew, which we would significantly produce higher production costs. So instead of trying to eliminate the ads, I think the real goal should be growing the audience and attracting bigger sponsors. Because if we want disc golf to become a bigger professional sport, we have to accept the business model that funds that.
Yeah, that was my whole point with the Powerball thing. Is like, to me, Powerball probably has the pockets that Rolex has. I could be wrong. Someone can tell me that.
They got
but
big pockets.
I would assume they have a lot of cash flow. And if they wanted to make a huge splash, to me, it would be like, hey, the end of every broadcast, there's going to be no commercials because of Powerball. Like that's the whole kind of idea of why Rolex is basically paying for all those ad spots.
Yeah, and
it has nothing to do with the Masters.
That's what 10 does at the end of every current broadcast now.
Crunch time, isn't that what it is?
Yeah, 10 does like the last usually 2 or 3 holes ad free.
They do offer that as a package.
I'm a big wrestling fan, and I know WWE does that a lot, right? Where they'll say, "Hey, this 2 hours of Monday Night Raw is brought to you commercial free by so and so," whoever that ad sponsor is paying, for that to be ad free. So there are creative ways, not even to be creative within the broadcast, but creative ways to avoid ads as well, right? There's different ways to do that and still bring in money.
And we haven't brought up the biggest problem. The biggest problem with disc golf is there is no good time to stop. Like all these other sports we talked about, of where Tim, or I think Tim was, I think it was Hunter, was talking about how all these can't remember who said it. Someone was saying how fans are like, I'm going to watch sports, I'm going to see commercials. Yeah, we're okay with that because the sport isn't happening. It's in between quarters. It's in between downs. It's in between innings. Nothing's happening. Where in disc golf, it's really tough because it's like we're going to commercial and then it comes back and you're like, wait, like there could be a lead change. There could be something happening.
Find a good spot.
It's very, very hard.
It is tough. But I do think, to Hunter's point as well, like it is true that I think ads can slip by on like golf broadcasts in particular because it is more of a passive viewing experience until it does get to crunch time. I mean, I watch many weekends out of the year. Disc golf will be competing with NFL football. It'll be competing with the Masters potentially, or like other golf major tournaments where I've got multiple things going at once. So, and even when I'm watching it, it's like, okay, I might be playing with my kids and I'm also watching the disc golf. So I think that definitely allows for it, but there's a lot they could do to make it smoother. I think also just the repetitiveness of a lot of their commercials gets to people
That's
too.
tough. That's
You're seeing
tough.
the same thing because that's where it sticks in your brain. Is like I've seen this
Hello,
10
I'm
times.
Kana.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who remembers Run Ricky Run from a few years back? You know, some really good ones. But
I mean, the
anyways.
mug one was like one of the best commercials ever with Eric Oakley, where he smashes the mug against the tree. When that first came out, I was like, this is a great commercial. And then by the end of coverage, I was like, I absolutely hate this commercial.
It's true.
And
It's
that's
true.
that's the problem. That's the
It's not
problem.
fair. All right, so let's move on to our last topic here. We're going to break down this course a little bit. We talked about the tee pads, but just this course in general is really the hot topic right now. So, and now we have Monday qualifying scores as well that we've seen come out. So there's already been some rumblings amongst players that the feature course, the new Big Easy Open, may just be too difficult. One common concern is the lack of a quote-unquote fair rough. So I'm kind of asking this question. You can talk about the course a little bit and how you think about the rough on this course, but I want to know, in general, what do you think the standard should be for rough on a pro level disc golf course? Is it okay to have rough that only presents a pitch out as an option, or is that boring and harmful to pace of play? Should there be variety in rough? Because it's a very hot topic among disc golfers. Some people really believe that when rough basically effectively acts as OB, that it's just not really good for the sport in general. Tim, what do you think about this?
So for this course in particular, like watching this guy, I could probably talk for 5 minutes on this topic, but the rough on this course, it's either you take out all the rough or it's wide open, or you just have this rough, right? There's not really in between with the type of rough that we're looking at on this course, right? So for me, I mean, having that we're professionals, right? At the end of the day, I get heated on this one. I mean, disc golf, obviously it's easy, Brodie. We all know that. But we're professionals at the end of the day, right? Like, I want to watch courses where I don't want to watch it and say, man, if I get lucky, I might be able to shoot that same shot, right? I want to watch a course where players are really figuring out a puzzle almost. And when they make a shot, I can say to myself, like, okay, there's never in a million years would I ever make that shot, right? Those are the kind of courses and the kind of level that I like to watch the professionals play, because it really intrigues me at the way that they shape shots and the way that they think about shots and the way that they approach them, right? Also, I know I've seen plenty of stuff of John Huck where, even Ezra and Goose talked about it, and some other players have talked about it. Like, he has been on the course with these players, right? He has made it a point to go out and say, how can I make this better for you? How can I switch the rough up, or how can I take stuff out, or how can I add stuff to make this a better course for you? So for me, I know I'm out of time. However, like I said, I could talk about this for another 3 minutes. Like, we are professionals at the end of the day. And yes, sometimes a pitch out is what it takes to continue the hole. But at the end of the day, those courses require more demanding shots that I love to watch.
Yeah, fair to say. I'm kind of in your boat. I like seeing the players struggle a little bit out there if they're not playing well. Brodie, what do you think about this issue?
Yeah, so it's a tough one because I think everyone has differing opinions on this, and I think that's completely fine. I think some people are going to enjoy watching a certain style of disc golf, and some people aren't going to enjoy it. And when you try to make it to where every course is the same, then you really potentially might be taking out a group of people that really enjoy the other style of disc golf. And I think you can see this also on the PGA Tour, another sport where some people really like certain courses, some people really hate certain courses. It's really hard to make everyone really enjoy it. So my thought on this, from playing it, from watching it, one of my least favorite things, and it happens, I think, more in disc golf than it does in golf, is the idea of when you play a course where there is no OB, which, the designer of this course doesn't believe in OB. We have a lot of people Simon Lizotte doesn't think there should be OB. There's a lot of people that just don't think there should be OB. So when you remove the OB, what ends up going on is players' number one job is, how do I get the disc as far as possible towards the basket? And they don't care about anything else. And you start seeing some of the stupidest shots ever. And I know there might be some people at home being like, oh, there was this shot and this shot and this shot. for every shot you see that's incredible, that someone actually had to throw an insane line and they pulled it off, there are 10x that many where someone's just chucking a roller and hoping to get lucky. And to me, I hate that style of disc golf. I hate watching it. I hate playing it. And if you have to force players to throw shots in the fairway and make fairway really important, I'm okay with it. So I don't really mind the pitch out if you throw a bad shot off the tee. What I do mind is if they have stuff in the fairways and players are hitting trees and then getting ricocheted into the trap, into the crap, that's where it's tough. If you throw a good shot and you're in the fairway, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, definitely fair to say. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
I think that the rough, especially on this course, I think it should absolutely have a place in professional disc golf. But the key that it should be is that it should be punishing without being random. And the purpose of the rough is to reward those accurate shots and penalize those mistakes. But it still needs to allow players to demonstrate skill when they recover. Specifically, I can think of Ricky being called the Scramble King. And I think that's kind of important because when the rough becomes so dense that the only option is a pitch out every time, you start removing that skill element. And at that point, it's not really testing shot making ability anymore. It's about adding strokes. And I think from a viewer perspective, that can actually get repetitive and redundant. And watching players repeatedly pitch out sideways is not really the most exciting disc golf. And that said, rough still has a place in disc golf and that it's absolutely necessary at the professional level. If you miss the fairway by a significant margin, you shouldn't always have a clean line out of that. And I think the ideal balance, in my opinion, is rough that limits your options without eliminating them. So maybe you can attempt a risky scramble line, a grenade over the trees, whatever it might be, but maybe you're forced to play a placement shot and the player still has to make that decision. Because the best course design in disc golf so far that we've seen doesn't just punish mistakes, it creates interesting decisions after those mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you completely take out the scrambling and decision making, I do think that does create a boring style of golf because at that point, maybe it should just be OB if the rough is truly that bad. Gary, wrap it up for us. What are your thoughts on this course in the rough?
Yeah, John said he wanted the course to be hard, right? He wanted people who got into C2 to feel really good about that. And if you got to C1, that was an absolute primo shot. He even did something where he put in areas of rough, he put in mounds where if you land on those mounds, you're going to have awkward footing position from like a verticality perspective that players have to deal with to get creative. I don't like when I agree with Brodie. I don't like it when players have to throw these super lucky shots that get through and roll and whatever. I think that rough should be punishing, especially at the highest level of the game. You look at some of these fairways and they have these massive cypresses that sit in the middle. And yeah, you're going to get some kicks that are going to go off to the left or the right. So I think there's times where rough can be rougher. Like if it's early on the hole and you throw a terrible shot early on, punishment. That's what you deserve. This is the Pro Tour. Punishment is what you should deserve. Yeah, as you talk about getting to landing areas where players have to think about, am I taking this gap or that gap, and being tactical about what they're doing, maybe the rough there is a little more thin so that there are opportunities to push it a little bit harder. But I think ultimately, like I agree that we're at the top level of the game. Players are going to have to perform at the top level of the game. This course was designed to force players to think. There's multiple gaps on the tees. They use the word sucker gap in a couple cases where he deliberately put stuff in place to force players to maybe take that alternative route. So if a player has to pitch out, you have to pitch out, be better. We want the best players to win, and we want to see the best shots to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about some of the decision making they're going to have to make on this course. I mean, this is a pace of play nightmare because there's like 5 different gaps on every single fairway.
Can I throw out one more take?
Yeah.
I also think too, when it comes to scrambling, I think the way that it's filmed is normally so bad that you actually have no idea. So, and when it comes to that, who really cares? Because you have no idea if they're having to throw through a 10-foot gap or a 1-foot gap. Because most of the time the camera is in the fairway shooting horizontally at the player, and you just see the disc either come out or not come out. And so when you're talking about, I want to have the rough be where these players can make these incredible shots. You don't actually even know if it's actually an incredible shot. It actually might be a wide open shot and you have no idea.
A lot of times I'll see kind of like what appears to be a scramble shot, and I'll be like, okay. And then I'll hear Brian Earhart come on and be like, guys, you have no idea how small that gap was. Like, that gap was no larger than the palm of my hand. And then I'm like, oh, all right, sick. But yeah, you're right. Like,
it's like
it
a
is
lot of
hard
times
to
you have no
capture,
idea.
which there are times in golf where that does happen, but usually they can get behind, at least behind the player, to where you can understand what they're looking at. Oh, we're moving the entire crowd out of the way, that sort of deal.
Yeah.
Gives you a little more perspective. That's definitely a struggle of like woods golf, is like, if only we could be almost looking over their shoulder and see what they're seeing.
POV.
It'd be a lot better. All right. We're gonna move on to our finals. If you haven't already been able to tell, I have no producer tonight, so we're just staying in the 4-window shot here. Everybody's just gonna hang out for a little bit. But Hunter and Gary, moving on to our final topic to pick our winner. Hunter, you have the lead right now, so I'll let you call it, heads or tails.
Tails.
I want somebody to start keeping track of how many times each one of these. Oh my gosh, I almost dropped the coin, and it is heads. Gary, would you like to go first or second?
I will defer.
Whoa! That's crazy stuff right there. All right, well, Hunter's going to go first here. Here's our topic. Car manufacturer McLaren recently announced that they would enter the golf equipment space, applying their engineering know-how to a very different sport. During COVID, disc golf was able to attract a few plastic companies into the market that specialize in other products, but saw the sales appeal, obviously, during that COVID boom. Could you see this happening any more moving forward? If disc golf had attractive enough revenue potential, would larger companies take over the space and boot out current disc golf manufacturer giants? And then for fun, what's one company you think could make a splash as a disc manufacturer? Because McLaren into golf, quite an interesting one. Hunter, fire away.
Yeah. So I think kind of like whenever we're talking about other companies coming into disc golf, we've actually already seen versions of this happen before with Lone Star Disc, for example. They originally were an industrial plastic company, and they went into the manufacturing components of oil field equipment all before disc production during the COVID boom. I think another good example, I believe, is MVP Disc Sports. They were originally just a plastic injection molding company before they started making their discs, and eventually they made their overmold technology, and here they are. So companies with existing plastics manufacturing expertise absolutely could enter the disc golf space, but historically we've seen that the market is actually harder than it looks because of just different characteristics such as disc design, plastics, all that stuff. It takes time to refine, and more importantly, disc golfers are incredibly loyal to those brands. Take Innova, for example. Innova is classic, one of the most well-known brands in disc golf, and it's hard to break out of that loyalty mold. Same thing with Discraft, and I think it's going to be especially difficult for an outside corporation to come in and just take it all over. So I do think, in terms of all that stuff, if we're going to consider a fun manufacturer, I think of is Lockheed Martin. I think that would probably be one of the best options for a disc manufacturer because they know aerospace. They know how to make it fly good. And a second option is Apple, because I just want to hear the iDisc Pro Max come onto the scene.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about aerodynamics, there's a lot of possibilities out there. We've already seen companies like Boeing get involved in golf in collaboration with Callaway, like working on aerodynamics. Yeah. Whether that's a bunch of marketing mumbo jumbo, I don't know. Honestly, I'd almost look for that first. Who's the first disc golf company to bring on a company as just really a marketing tagline? Gary, what do you think about all this? Break it down for us.
I think it's going to come down to where is the money going to be at, and can we showcase enough of something for another place to get into? And if we can, a great first start that we've seen is a lot of players, a lot of pros have latched onto Vessi, a footwear product. And it wouldn't be crazy to think that a large sporting goods company, maybe somebody who sits atop the market cap for sporting goods companies, like, I know it's low-hanging fruit, Nike, to come in and throw a flyer at this area where they can come in and sweep across with incredible shoes. They got the athletic apparel, and to lean into discs. I wouldn't be surprised that Nike could probably do pretty well, and this wouldn't be a very big blip on their balance sheet to take a flyer at disc golf. If anything, they just make their money back, and it's another sport they can put underneath their wing. Who knows? Maybe even Dick's Sporting Goods, if they're seeing the success that they're having with the stuff that's in their store, maybe they take a shot at it. So I think if we're creating a ideal world, an existence where the money is there, it's not crazy to see a sporting goods company make that lateral move to acquire something, to create a manufacturer that's going to just add another thing, diversify on their balance sheet. Because I don't think it requires a lot of money for them to break into the market like that. So if we're going, Nike'd be the one that would do it, and I think they would do it really well, and you'd see them boot out some other manufacturers.
I think the most interesting thing here, to Hunter's point, is the idea that, like, let's say a company like Nike, just using your example, gets involved in the sport and like actually created a line of discs. Obviously, there would be a lot of power there outside of the disc golf bubble and inside of the disc golf bubble. Like, of course, I would bag the Nike driver to see what it did. But you would, from inside of disc golf, like they could pay the pro athletes and really wedge their way into people's bags. But like it's not like I would be obligated to throw these discs. Now, if they were way better, that's one thing. But if they're not, it's like, yeah, I mean, there are loyal Innova throwers that might just be like, well, I don't care. Like, I don't want this disc. And, Nike can market all they want to people that are just joining the sport, and they can take over the sporting goods stores and dominate that part of the funnel. But it would be interesting to see, like, I feel like there would be like this initial pushback, whether that would even work or last long, I don't know. But it is, I think it's a very interesting topic because, to your point, Gary, there's obviously not a huge, there's a little bit of a barrier to entry in plastic manufacturing, but compared to some of the size of these companies, not much. But Hunter, I'm going to give you the win today. Very, very well said, very well spoken. You had a great show. So I'm going to give you the W. Is that 2 debut winners this season now?
Back to back.
Back to back.
Another Hunter.
And then it's another Hunter. Yeah, the comments are chiming in right now. Oh, Hunter going in the second slot. It was spoken into existence. Congratulations, Hunter. Well done.
I love being on here.
And we have the same microphone as well, so mine's just a different color. But that was just extra bonus points. But great show tonight. Great show from everybody. Some fun topics next week. We're gonna probably be talking about whether somebody getting bit by a snake in the rough was cool, and if the medical team handled it, and whether or not an alligator eating your disc should count as an unplayable lie. But thanks for everybody tuning into this episode, and make sure to join us again next week with some more great guests, because we got more and more new personalities to add on the show, and so far everybody has been fantastic. So it's been a lot of fun. We'll see you then.